Kyle was famous. Kyle is famous. Kyle once again is famous. New endings. I am very excited. I love this game. But because there are new endings, we are gonna go be famous once again. If you have not seen the other Kyle is famous, then check that link up right there. It could be up there. I never know. They're hilarious and wonderful. This game is wonderful. I will also leave it in the description below. Go check it out yourself. It's free. He's also coming out with some DLC, some Kyle's hot dogs, which is gonna be good. If you enjoyed this and you want to see Kyle's hot dogs, you can hit that subscribe button. All we did was get dressed and eat, so you missed nothing. Let's see what happens here. Kyle hurried to the set. Per normal, he ceased to be a ghost before he arrived. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here." Kyle responded. "And I as well, Rachel," answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. "You're a most welcome guest." After other mild exchange of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast. A moment after seating the studio, lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. I don't know what else he said, I forgot. "Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction. This is new. Become Rachel May." However, Kyle said suddenly, dropping his voice, "Rachel May is not sitting next to me. She's not new to this show. She did not walk in before me. In fact," said Kyle, "I am Rachel May." Rachel looked at Kyle, confused, and silently mouthed the words, "You are who?" Kyle stood up quickly and threw his arms high above him, pointing upwards. "I have never been Kyle," he shouted. "I have never been the host of the show Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle looked and pointed directly at the camera. "I am here for but one reason, to interview myself." Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier. It was in the Kyle remembered he had not bothered to prepare. Got a typo there, Tucky. Any notes for the interview. Realizing he did not know how to handle the situation, Kyle began sweating profusely, but he continued. "Firstly," he said, is your name Kyle?" "No!" Kyle slammed his fist down repeatedly. Then he stopped talking. A thick, uncomfortable silence hung over the studio. The silence did not end. The cameras continued to roll. Nobody moved or spoke. Eventually, Rachel got out of her chair and walked off screen. One by one, the crew members followed suit. Eventually, Kyle was left alone in the studio, cameras still running, silently sitting in frame. The episode of Stay Up Late with Kyle became the longest episode in television history. Kyle continued to sit in front of the camera all night into the morning, wishing it would end. As evening fell again, the crew shuffled back in one by one, getting in place to film that day's episode. Kyle continued to sit motionless, cameras rolling, as the crew chatted about their days and got into position. Eventually, the crew officially started the next episode. Kyle was prompted to introduce himself again. Kyle had produced an incredibly artistic episode. Kyle was artistic. Boy, it just goes to show if you don't prepare, stuff will still work out. Procrastinate. That's the lesson here. That was beautiful. Whew, don't pay any mind to that. That's because Kyle is Santa. Reset. All right, I have ideas. I think what we have to do to get the other endings is stuff with the notes. I bet we become Rachel and we ask ourselves questions. Let's see. Exit the bed. Kyle exited his bed and quickly took a glance around his bedroom. Sit at desk. Kyle made his way over to his desk and sat down. Kyle wrote down his first interview questions. Are you a mother? Kyle wrote down his second question. What are some diet tips? Kyle wrote down his third question. What's their funniest story? Or whatever that said. Kyle wrote down his last question. What's your guilty pleasure? Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook, got up from the desk. We're gonna get dressed and we're gonna eat and we'll see each other at the studio. Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier. Kyle read the first question on his list. Are you a mother? I'm glad you asked, said Kyle. Yes, I am. Yes, you are, said Kyle, trying to figure out who was talking to whom. Or am I? In a fit, Kyle continued to re-answer his question, trying to come up with the correct phrasing. Rachel spoke up. Kyle, I am not a mother at all, so it doesn't really matter. Lies! Impossible! I don't believe it! Kyle banged his fist on the chair. Kyle, I've never been in a position for that. I'm really just focused on my career. All you need to do is ask. Rachel smiled sweetly. Kyle was silent for a moment. Then, realizing he had no idea what he was doing, decided to let Rachel talk. So what about your career? Do you enjoy what you do? How did you get into it? The two continued talking for the better part of an hour, Kyle asking Rachel questions and Rachel answering accordingly. Eventually, Kyle's producer signaled Kyle that it was time to stop. The broadcast ended. The crew and Rachel and Kyle said their goodbyes and returned home, but Kyle continued to think about Rachel after the interview ended. Something about Rachel had struck Kyle. He wasn't exactly sure what, but he did know that he was interested to hear that she was single. Kyle noticed Rachel! Feels like a spoiler a little bit. Unless you haven't seen the main game. If you have seen the main game, then like, it's like, ooh. Ooh. Dad's hot. Very hot. We are once again going to take some notes, see if we ask a different question. What happened? Sit at desk, write notes. Am I a mother? Beef mashed or blended? Do you ever smile? Do you feel guilty? Once again, eat, dress, meet you back at the interview. Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier. Kyle read the first question on his list. Are you a mother? Well, he said, brightening, I'm glad you asked. Yes, I have produced many, many, many children. In fact, said Kyle, motioning to Rachel, one of my children is sitting here with me today. Rachel looked incredibly confused. After a moment, Kyle spoke again. I am your mother! He stood up again. Give me a big hug, daughter! After a moment more, Rachel shrugged, stood up, and gave Kyle a hug. The interview continued, Kyle talking about his supposed raising of Rachel and their times together. Rachel engaged in the interview with exuberance, answering questions as best she could and enjoying every moment. From this episode, Rachel's childhood and family became a debate topic in her fan base. When fans asked about the matter, she would giggle and make a joke about the interview. Scientists and fans began to dig deep, finding evidence both for and against the Kyle is Rachel's mother theory. But no matter how much anyone dug, nobody was able to come to a conclusion on the matter. Kyle had created a public mystery. That was really good. Kyle created a mystery. Yeah, and you know what? It would happen. There would be those people that are like, I mean, Kyle said Rachel was his mother. No, Kyle said he was Rachel's mother. He has to be Rachel's mother. Don't you assume his gender? Last questions. Sit at desk. Is your mother a mother? Have you ever eaten a raw egg whole? I purposefully ran over a puppy. Are you guilty? Now we eat, we dress, and we meet. Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier. Kyle read his first question on the list. Is your mother a mother? Kyle replied, no, because I am my mother. And, continued Kyle, I am your mother and everyone's mother, and also Rachel and Kyle, and I'm also your children and that woman you met in the coffee shop yesterday and your high school best friend, and I'm your friend, and I'm the person next to you, and I'm also you. Kyle waved his arms around and smiled. My camera died mid-wave. Boy, that's awkward. Nobody seemed to understand. It's a magic trick, shouted Kyle happily. I'm everyone now. Kyle got up and happily danced out of the studio, arms spread wide. Although not taken seriously at first, Scientologists quickly found that Kyle's claims were true. Somehow, it's a magic trick. Somehow, magically, Kyle became everyone and nobody else technically existed anymore. After a massive amount of study, it was found that Kyle had stumbled upon a very unexpected sociological loophole. Nobody really knew what to do with this newfound discovery, so they decided to do nothing. Kyle continued to theoretically be everyone, and everybody else continued to be theoretically non-existent. It was a strange time to be alive. What a fitting ending, because it is indeed a strange time to be alive. Kyle was everybody. That was Kyle was famous, or Kyle is famous. Boy, oh boy, I really enjoyed those. Thank you so much, Ducky, for this little update to bring us some future. Stay safe, everybody. It is a strange time to be alive, gosh darn it. And I want you each to be safe and secure. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to see more of what we do on this channel, hit that subscribe button. We do all sorts of fun stuff, a lot of indie horror games. So if you want to see those, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this and you laughed along with me, hit that like button. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to leave them down below. And if you would share this video, any and all of that would make my heart go... I love this game. I don't know where I was. Bye!
I am here for but one reason, to interview myself. Boy, it just goes to show if you don't prepare, stuff will still work out. Procrastinate, that's the lesson here. Lies! Kyle noticed Rachel. I am your mother! He stood up again. Get me up, bed! Kyle created a mystery. Don't you assume his gender. I am your mother, and everyone's mother. And also Rachel, and Kyle, and I'm also your children, and that woman